Hey everybody, welcome back to the Spin Rack. I'm here with Petey. Say what's up, Petey.
What up?
Hey, we're discussing this article dropped on CBR. Star Wars has the perfect enemy for Rey Skywalker's return. First of all, I can't even believe there's going to be a return for the sequel movies, unless it's being run by our boy Dave Filoni. But hey, what do you think, Petey? Give me a
You
heads up.
see this? What it says? The Bad Batch Season 2 reintroduce a mysterious antagonist force perfect for Rey Skywalker in the new Jedi Order film. You see that? The listing right there?
Yeah, I've seen the second season of Bad Batch, and I'm trying to figure out who are they considering the perfect.
The Ancients, you heard of them?
Yeah, Dylan. I'm not sure, man. I think they should just scrap that whole thing and stick to the Filoni verse, Mando, the Mando verse, or whatever they want to call it, because that seems a better story, better cohesion. But Filoni was able to tie the prequel movies together with Clone Wars and stuff. Probably they need something like that and I guess he is doing something like that because he's continuing along the lines in. If you're watching Ahsoka, he's continuing along the lines of the New Republic, the way they have things set up. You have Leia as the defense council head. So, and the senators are there, still as chaotic as ever with democracy. I mean, sometimes I think the Star Wars want a monarchy or something like that because they always make the rebels, Senate, and stuff look like a bunch of amateurs compared to what's happening with Thrawn and what happened with the Emperor. Those guys, yeah, he was a bad guy, but you know what? The trains ran on time. That's the impression I get with them sometimes. And they had like cool outfits, all uniform, either solid white or solid gray. That's the impression I get from them sometimes. But no, I digress.
Boy, does he digress. Now, you hear that camera is on me. You hear that Mars supposedly has money and talking or trying to get some sort of thing out of Disney, giving our resumes in. But this is the second video where he's trashed them trying to explore more of their characters that they created. They created a character. She's a Jedi. She's a young Jedi. And whether we dislike or like, maybe, this next one will be, it done right. But if you're already shutting it down, how are we supposed to make anything? Aren't they supposed to make something out of this thing? This was the beginning arc for Rey, of her becoming a Jedi, right?
I mean, it is. I mean, the trilogies made a lot of money. The sequels made a lot of money, so we're not going
Yep.
to that way. And so one of the things that and the problem was that they changed directors midstream, right? They had two different directors. You had AJ Abrams, JJ Abrams, and then they had that other dude, the dude who did was it what forgot the
Ryan Johnson.
Ryan Johnson. Can't even pronounce the guy's name because he did such a bad job. But and then you had JJ Abrams again, who had to fix all the things that or tried to fix as much as he could.
He didn't fix anything. He made it worse.
He made it better as far as I'm concerned. But
how do you consider he made it better?
Because if you're using the direct directory, he said he wanted it was supposed to go a certain way, and Brian Johnson just totally flipped it, and so he had to come back in and try to right the ship and make some of the things that they were talking.
Which way was it supposed to go?
Well, it was supposed to be. I believe they were talking about lines that there was a creative difference. They said J.J. Abrams, that's what they were saying, and they had a set narrative of what should do, but Brian Johnson was like, nah, I don't really want to go that way. I want to go a different way, And of course, the suit said, all right, we got this guy, he's talented. Let's do that, And the fact that you got rid of, I mean, some of the fan things that they hated was getting rid of the way they got rid of Luke, the way they handled the death of Snoke, Snokes, whatever his name is, stuff like that. It could have been done a little better and make it a much more cohesive story, as opposed to the way they went about it. To me, there's just so many holes and issues when you compare it to something as a TV show that are on the Disney Channel. It's just those seem to be being run a lot better, and I think that
We're
If you
talking about the sequel to what's the name? You already established that you like the TV shows better.
not better, way better. Keyword is way better.
You've already established that.
So look, I'm always up for stuff. Remember they're doing a movie with Thrawn, right? They're gonna do a couple of I guess the Ahsoka and may have another season of Mando regarding the whole Thrawn thing as he's in the inner universe, and then they're gonna have a Heir to the Empire movie basically with Thrawn there. I don't know if they're gonna have more than one movie or that's gonna be the conclusion of the whole thing, but that's the plan right now. You know, so they're going to be bringing in a whole nother thing. It's kind of confusing if you ask me, because at one point they had the director from Wonder Woman. Do you remember her name? Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
she was supposed to be doing a big Rogue Squadron, which would have been, you know, I don't know if it was an older version of Rogue Squadron. I think it was probably an older version of Rogue Squadron, but it was Rogue Squadron, which is like one of the hallowed fighter squadrons, and she's coming in there to do that story. It would have been a great story. It would have been different. It wouldn't have been just dealing with Jedi and stuff, but now you're coming in with this Jedi business with Rey again, and we already know we've had some problems. And I'm not knocking. I can't knock Riley's um, acting or whatever. She's just doing what the director says, you know, and he's doing. And since he's involved, he's the one we have to blame. You know, the person who shall be unnamed in this episode, right? Um,
J.J. Abrams.
oh, Ryan Johnson, bro. What are you trying to do? I said he's not going to be named, and you're forcing me to call him out. All right.
But you called him out earlier.
I didn't say his name. You said his name again. So let's not. He will be unnamed going forward.
Okay. Um, there was some goodwill towards Ray and what was the other one? It's not. Is it Finn? Is Finn the black dude? Or
Yeah.
Finn?
Yes, he is.
So I think the the thing was they had a storyline. They had two characters that were building together, and then they tried to do like the Empire Strikes Back, where they separated them, and then they would find their own way, sort of like Han and Leia, and the people we see. And actually, Leia, most kids decided that Luke was going to be with Leia. She just gives him a kiss for good luck, and she has some of her most tense moments with Han. Like she's arguing with Han and this, that, and the other. And at the same time, Luke is just infatuated with her. He sees her, and it gives him puts him on this mission, right? So Ray, on a different sense, has has been a little more focused than Finn in the story, but ultimately, I'm not. I always plan to do it, but I haven't done it as a video yet. As a page one rewrite of the Rise of Skywalker, where ultimately a lot of her stuff is the classic, like Marvel adrenaline rush. She would have in these tough situations, she would get mad and then she would kick ass, right? Which is not always a way. That's kind of right makes might type of deal, which is not a really good way to deal with a character, but it works in a lot of Hollywood films. But you also have all the stuff that Yoda was talking about with the Jedi. And I always said, hey, there's a clear line that they're pushing her to be more aggressive, and that should lead her to the dark side. Then we see her with this double lightsaber, all the setup that she's going to have this double lightsaber, and she might go bad. But they say, oh no, this is just like her seeing Vader, like Luke seeing Vader and having a fight. Then he sees himself. So it was just that. And I was like, no, 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 no. Let's let's kind of push her to become bad because she hasn't had any right training and all the crazy stuff that was happening in with Luke. It says, hey, his biggest worry is that someone else goes to the dark side. And in doing that, maybe she goes to the dark side. And then we get a fourth film where we have to figure it out. Ultimately, and that would deal with the fake Palpatine because it'd be all the stuff of was it Kylo Ren? Be like Kylo Ren had this bigger plan where you could see the level of power, and he wanted to bring out all of her negative energy and see how much more. So that's where I was thinking. Now, obviously, they're going to do this thing, so she's going to be a good skilled Jedi fighting this evil thing, but you have to try to find your own way with these characters. And taking away Finn, taking away that relationship, having him find somebody else, you kind of lose all of that stuff that you could go a different way rather than do what's happening on the TV shows, because the TV shows are already doing. Here's Ahsoka. Here's the villain force. They're on the outskirts. It's all this backstory hooked up into it, and then they're using it, and then ultimately get to the end and they win. You have elements that allow you to bend this stuff because of how the force works and stuff, as they say. But at the same time, we know that they make up stuff with the force that leads you to the place where this could be, as to agree with you, this could not work out. So I know I said it's kind of going around in circles, but at the same time, I had goodwill for the first one. The two after weren't that good. I think the as bad as the Last Jedi was, and ultimately they could have let Mark Hamill write his own script, because clearly what he had in mind was way better. He knows a lot about story. Carrie Fisher knows, she was a screenwriter.
Screen
So,
Doctor.
huh?
Screen Doctor.
Both. She did screenwriter, both. She did both. So it's like both of them know story, and they could have possibly for their characters, and that's what happens sometimes, because as a writer you look at the whole, but then if you kind of talk with them and say, well, where do you see your characters, and that's what TV shows do. TV shows look around there and they say, we've been doing this for so long, what do you think? Or they see stuff the actors doing and they kind of factor it into the story, whereas this is like uncharted territory, and you don't want to just have, here's an adversary, and okay, she loses at the end of it, so we'll have a sequel and she wins. You try to find a way to have this character have a real arc, rather than her arc is that, what is it? She was in control of her powers. At the end, she was more powerful than she thought, and she almost thought she killed, Chewie or something like that. It's just like these phony sort of things to kind of give her character something. So I think you have to. I don't know. I think Star Wars has all this history, all these books, and I think you need to put that into this thing, into the next one, and pick the best stuff and cull it down into something good that doesn't have this character that's just a flawless, strong female, because you don't get any fun out of that. Having that saying, well, this is a character that people could like. Whereas, we're at this point where it's not like we haven't seen strong females. So that's why, Die Hard works, because you have this guy who is, coming to surprise his wife, and he comes with a bad attitude, and he basically is cursing his wife out, and then he's trying to get out and finds out that his wife has been kidnapped. Now he has to go save her, right? Because he came there because he loves her, and this is the arc that he's going to get her out of this. So it doesn't matter that they had this BS argument, and we have this arc of the character, right? So that's what we're trying to look for, not to say, hey, look, she's tough, because kids just look at it and turn it into, oh, wow, she did more stuff than Luke can do. That's more stuff than Anakin can do. That's even more than Yoda could do. And it's just like you're getting into a battle board where people are just putting her, like the way they used to play the role-playing games, and saying, your level is this. So Rey is the top, and then Yoda and this, and it's just like, those are not people that are fans. They're just like saying, I'm using Rey as my card. And it's like, oh, okay, I win your card. So my little understanding of that sort of thing. So
I mean, and I think you make a very good point. And like you said, there's a lot of books out there that can have a lot of stuff there. And from what I'm reading from this article from CBR, basically they're saying that they're going to be doing a Jedi Order. Like she's trying to reform the whole Jedi Order and stuff like that, and therefore the antagonist could be the Ancients or someone else. Now, it only makes sense that and Dave Filoni's involved. So now that I know Dave Filoni's involved, all of a sudden, all my fears are starting to go away.
Wow.
I'm serious, yo, dude. You give it to people that you trust, right? You give somebody a job that you trust can do it. So I mean, of course, he may be stretching himself thin, but Dave Filoni, if he's doing this, then it makes a lot of sense because he respects the source material, right? I think there's a group called what, the Star Wars Storyboard Group or Story Group, and those guys are basically the hollowed. Um, they form the history of Star Wars, what's acceptable and what's not. And if you follow that, then you won't have much issues, because they try their best. They do make they do make some issues, but they try to make sure there's not as much conflict between the characters and the storylines. And I think that if they're going to do a Jedi Order, because there was a series of books with back in Legends they call them, where Luke was forming the whole new Jedi Order himself. And I think if they want to follow that, there's a lot of stories that can come out of those old books, to be brought in here. I mean, of course, it's so complex sometimes, but you can simplify some, like you just saying, for other audiences. You have ready-made stories, and we've said this before on many type of media. Ready-made stories in the comics, but we know how Hollywood works. It's like, hey, we want to own a piece of this too. We just don't want to just lift and say, oh, this is an original work. Because not if because they want to change it up a little bit, they might just use AIs and call it a day. You know, but now I'm thinking I'm changing my hunch, and I say if Filoni's behind it, he's going to try to weave a web that connects everything, and that's the key thing. You have that far in advance with the Sith, right? And that's coming out. So you have what's happening now in Ahsoka. That's happening like just what because Jason is older, probably at least 10 years away from what happens in the movie, right? So theoretically, you got Grogu from the Mandalorians who has Jedi powers. You have Ezra who has Jedi. You have Ahsoka. So there is a possible Jedi Order there. They also have another guy from the Jedi Fallen Order movie, video games, Cal Kestis, I think his name is.
Uh huh.
You already have like a series of Jedi's already you can form an order with, and Rey being principal. Now, if you just say, hey, we're only going to put Rey and everybody else is just doing their own thing, then you're like, what's going on here? So you either have to use existing characters with a new narrative, or basically fall back on the old Jedi Order stuff that Luke Skywalker was trying to do back in the old stories. That's my take. Follow those things. And you should have at least a roadmap, and then you can deviate on who the characters are and who the bad guys are, but stick to a format and that should work for you. You know.
Yeah.
So I'm positive. I'm all for it. But first of all, they got to get this Thrawn story off good. The season finale is coming up real soon, and dude, it's going to be a whopper, I believe. So
So, I mean, you're with it now, so who knows? And you feel like he's going to be, the next guy for the Star Wars thing. Okay. Oh, side note, have you read Splinter in the Mind's Eye?
that's a long time ago, very long time.
I've only had read the comic book, and it was a stunning book. It has Darth Vader in there. It's Luke and Leia running around doing all this cool stuff. And I just wonder why they won't do something like that or do an updated version of that where you have some of these new characters in these old sort of thing. Because what was it? No, I guess at some point Lucas said that all these things tie together, right? And that's what people felt. So I guess you're not supposed to, but I would love to see Luke and Leia running around doing stuff, and then you have to tone down any sort of romantic tension, but you get those characters in the animated form. Is there anything that I know they talk about you said Thorn. Is there anything else that you want them to translate to?
I mean, look, they had Rogue Squadron. I thought Rogue Squadron was one of the better options for them to do. Um, there's a whole thing with Jason Solo, the sons of the twin sons of Lake Luke and Han Solo and stuff like that, and how
Luke and Han have a son?
right, Leia and Han have a
Luke, good lord, this is a future. This is a world. What a fantasy!
son.
Luke and Han have twins. Okay, that's why they weren't in this movie.
No, but I mean, he's a major character. I mean, he becomes like dark side. I mean, he basically becomes like his father. and he is powerful. He's not like there's no question of who he is and what he's doing. He is the man. I mean, if you think Darth Vader was bad, this dude is like off the chain. So that's just one of the stories there. You also have, like Mara Jade. She was, I guess the girlfriend, the mother or wife of Luke Skywalker, but of course Luke Skywalker is no longer there. So, she's central. She could have been part of that. I mean, there's just so many stories to come in. I think they had like a Star Wars Academy. I think I remember they were doing. They were setting that up. So it's a lot of stories that they can possibly do and work with in terms of how the story goes. It's a new world. Remember the thing is we forget is that it's over. Um, the war is over and everybody's trying to fix things now, right? What's going on? How things are going on? I think a good idea what they've done was Rebel, and this is a side note. I think this is like the 10th anniversary of Rebels when it first started, Star Wars Rebels,
Hmm.
and the fact that now we have Ahsoka, you know, which is a lot of people consider like the fifth season of Rebels. But again, also another Dave Filoni show. When it came on, it was geared towards kids, and once again, adults liked it because the plots were made a lot were better. It was written for an adult audience. No, it was written for a kid audience, but adults ended up liking it a lot. Um, I think it's just the amount of stories. There's just so many stories. I think Claremont wrote a story for I'm not sure. Did Chris Claremont write a story for Star Wars?
They did one from Star Trek that I know. I
Oh,
think, yeah, that it was a graphic novel that was right after he left X Men, which was it's a gorgeous book if you ever see it. That's a graphic novel I need to get. But keep going.
yeah. No, yeah, X Men. I thought he did this, so I was off. It's the wrong one. So I thought he did something for Star Wars, but there's a lot of books, and it's just a question of them just picking a story. And then there's some stories. The Thrawn, they have comic books too. I mean, they have a whole Darth Vader run of comics. They have a whole Star Wars run of comics and stuff. The stuff that's been coming out recently, the new the new comics, I forget what they call them. I haven't really gotten into them. I read a couple of the stories for the
Hmm.
new versions. What is it called? The Star Wars comics. But it's not necessarily bad. It's just different. I'm trying to say it's a different time when the Jedi are around. There are tons of Jedi, and they go to handle different things. And we know that in the end, when it comes up to the prequel time, that the Jedi still run the show. They're still in control of everything. They're still
Hmm.
the ultimate arbiters. Well, not the ultimate arbiters, because the Jedi basically wanted to stay away from being involved in a lot of stuff. They're like, hey, we're monks, and we defeated our enemies, so we're all internal. So that's how they end up losing.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, there's stuff there, bro. There's stuff there. It's just, and they got stuff that there's so many different genres that they can use, like the whole space western, going to Tatooine, and do that's like space western. You have the pirates,
Yeah,
the characters. So really a question, probably the now starting to see is the core worlds, the corporate worlds like Corellia and stuff like that, where they're building the ships and they're part of the empire, and you're like, they don't really rebel. Those guys don't ever really rebel. The people rebelling are people in the outer rims, you know.
yeah. Hmm.
So, um, yeah. So I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot. There's this whole alien group called the Yuuzhan Vong, who basically attack the Star Wars universe, and they take over and destroy a lot of stuff until they finally get stopped. And that's
Hmm.
because the the uh, the the leaders of the New Republic don't recognize it as a threat, and that's a problem. That's a problem. So yeah, and then let's the video games. The video games have some good stuff too.
Hmm.
So
So yeah, that's what I mean. Someone who's jazzed about Star Wars, I'd like to, as as I struggle with, the Marvel comics, I always some things I want to see. So I'm kind of wanting to just go dig in this thing that, this history. It sounds like Dave Filoni has dug into some of the history to kind of make it work with some of the new stuff that's going on in Clone Wars and whatnot. because obviously people were making it up as they were going along. But don't always think that you're stuck having to do come up with whole cloth stuff when you have this. You have stuff Yoda says, and then say, not just flip out and say, "Oh, we can't do this because of this." Kind of your story. That's what I was saying with Rey. Kind of say, "Oh, she won because of this thing." Maybe he wants her to win. Maybe her doing this stuff could lead her to the dark side. And having this phony propped up villain in the Palpatine, they should stay phony propped up and being like, "Oh wow, he's not actually this." It's like no. So, but anyway, I guess that's all I had to say. I just hope that they do something good, decent with her. Not in a way where it's so good where they start saying, "We knew we had to see three bad movies to get a good one. See, this it makes all the other ones work." No, the Clone Wars don't. Even though I was bugging with you, the Clone Wars don't make the prequels kind of work better. The prequels are the prequels. So,
No, but look, here's a question I have for you.
oh,
So, what has Daisy Ridley been doing? I mean, is she on board for the show for the movie?
um, what work outside of that?
I mean, it's not like she's been doing a ton of other stuff, right? It's like most of the Game of Thrones actors, right? We're not seeing them doing a whole bunch of stuff, right?
You see
Um,
one of them doing a whole bunch of stuff. The lead, the girl with the dragons, right? She's been in a bunch of stuff, right?
bunch of stuff. I mean, look, the Secret Invasion just got panned, so you know,
I'm saying you said work. I'm not
yeah,
saying what's good or bad.
that's a
I'm
good point.
saying you're working. So as long as you're working, it's the thing. The harder part is with women, and or as they say, well, no, look, she just has movies that aren't big. Like I'm looking at her IMDb, and she's getting leading parts. It's just stuff you don't know what it is. Like
So,
so it's not really. We can be critique and say what's this Marsh King's daughter? What's this event? Little voice acting. Like what? This audio book, a video game is like where the money is. That's like oh yeah, it's like kind of. I guess she's going with. I mean, she probably made a lot of money, but she wanted to continue to work, so she looks like she did a lot of voice acting. Worked on a podcast. It was an audio series,
I
and
think
then she.
actually, Marsh King was a book. I think I remember reading it,
Mhm.
something like it, where this guy breaks out of prison, her pops, and she's like the only person who knows how to track him down. He like raised her to be like a survivalist, or he was out in the woods or something like that. So yeah, that could be a hit. It's a psychological thriller, so that could definitely be a hit if done right. I think the book, if it was a book I'm talking about, I don't know if that's what they called it, but yeah, it was based on the Marsh King's daughter. Yeah, it's a book based on the Marsh King's daughter, and so that was a really popular book that came out. I think last year, the year before. Let me see. I'm not sure when it came out, but it came out just a couple of years ago. And so it was,
And
so she being the person to go and find her survivalist pops and all the history that they had to go through and stuff like that. It could be a big hit.
it looks like it has the guy from the Secret Invasion, isn't he? I can't. I'm looking at a small picture. Uh, Producer of the Revenant. Yep, it's got Telos. So
And the One Woman in the Sea is about a young woman who won a gold medal in the 1924 Olympics. I don't know. Olympic movies don't seem to do big. That's in post production.
well, I think she probably made at the same time. I think I think it's better that she not kill herself trying to find the next thing because it felt like I know for Mark Hamill, he really struggled post Star Wars, even though he was okay with the idea of it only being three films and then he would move on. Hollywood was like, we have our star, and when he was already a star, but it's like we have our star in Harrison Ford, and we only pick one of them. But then you see as far as talent and range, you have that in Mark Hamill because he can do voices, that sort of thing. But at the same time, you see a lot of his straight to video movies that he did. They were just like tough, rough guys, and it was like, why is he being tough, rough? We've seen him in what's the name, like The Flash. But at the same time, he was very much connected in the comic book community. He did have a comic book come out. He was very accessible. He did have a hard time struggling, and he didn't, being a name actor. He didn't at some point. I think in the '90s he didn't have a what's the name. But he put out the video game Wing Commander, and what he said when they were talking about there was some buzz around it, and he was saying he didn't have a agent at that time. And then I think they had George Lucas responded. They asked him a question about that when I guess they did the article, and George Lucas said he just needs our agent. You should just get an agent. You see him with the Batman thing. It kind of brought him back to say, "Oh wow, look at this! He can do that." And we've seen him in different things, doing different voices. Most recently, regretfully, the Machine, which he played Bert Kreischer's father in it, which it didn't do well. But they just didn't have the right writer on it. They should have had me do that because I would have figured out your story to do something like that because you had too great a story for it not to be a success and just do a standard movie out there. But that's in the same thing with Carrie Fisher. Like Carrie Fisher is an old school Hollywood actress, and you'll say, "Oh, her voice changed. She had an accent in one scene. She had an accent." That happens, especially in popular movies all the time. But you have someone who's as we already said, a writer. She was a singer. She has a soulful voice. She had a soulful voice. Sorry to say, had because and at the same time, she was a person. When you got her into a room, she had a ton of energy. She was very smart. So it was like, and when I look at it, it's like, how did she turn into was it in Harry Met Sally, where she plays like the supporting character type deal? And I understand she wasn't an it girl, but it's like it's like they're saying having Tupac in Medicine Society, but he plays the what's the name? He plays the Muslim character where he just says one or two lines. It wouldn't work. But obviously you get older, then you can play sort of less things. But it's like, and I saw her in an interview, and she was a little more heavier than I'd seen and a lot older. But she was just like whipping the lines out there. She was hilarious. It was just like, oh, this person really needs to work because she's really talented. Like she's really a natural. So you have this Daisy Ridley doesn't seem to be having that arc where listening. I think Carrie Fisher kind of slowed down when she started writing. You can see her kind of like relax a little, even though they kind of made it a poster child for some of her health struggles and drug struggles.
No, no, you're 100% right. And I take a look at their IMDb pages, and it's just, I mean, the amount of work they've done, tons.
Mm-hmm.
And you have, but I mean, I think that, I mean, not to say he was slow, but he seemed to have gotten hot after the '90s. He
Mm-hmm.
did that Joker and the Phantasm, and he killed
Yes.
that. Did around, I mean, he was then after that the comic book Joker going forward, and then he did the Wing Commander.
Yeah.
That was a hit at the time. He did I think the video game and the I had a voice in the TV or whatever.
We did something was in the movie. The movie that they have for it.
Was it a movie? One or two?
Yeah, it was a movie.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's cool. Cause yeah, he was. I mean, he got he was doing it as a. He was when he was talking about it. He was talking about how much better it was than the one that was in Star Wars. But then I think the AFC gave George Lucas an award, and they had Mark Hamill come out and speak, and he said some really like nice things. So it's like it was good to see him kind of figure it out. But the hard thing is any movie is like you take the movie, it's a success. We are going to take Medicine Society. We're taking Lorenz Tate. We want only you and none of the other people. It's like you people say, oh, it's like when black people, oh, it's the light skinned person. No, no, no. People pick the star. And they say you are going to work forever. The rest of you guys figure it out. And that's the hard thing about it.
you
Huh?
know, I always thought that Luke Skywalker. When I found out it was Han Solo who was really that people were like, yo, that he's the one who got the Raiders of the Lost Ark. I said, what happened to Luke Skywalker? He was the guy. He was the wide-eyed guy. He was us going
Yeah.
into the adventure and figuring out and getting himself. And they're like, no, no, the man you need to look at is Han Solo. I'm like, so I mean, like for me, there's always a battle between the innocent new neophyte coming on screen versus the old rogue. He was a rogue, and it was always like, but Luke was there. But I guess I understand why the director said, "Hey, let's not focus on the coming of age like you do this in the storybooks, in the books where you have the young guy who comes out, he doesn't know who he is and finds out through a miracle that he's related to the kings or he has a superpower and go. He said,
Mhm.
no, we're gonna focus on the rogue. Okay, that's what we want to look at. That's the guy. That's the guy we want to look. You know.
Well, he also was already it person, obviously in American Graffiti,
Yes.
and
Yes.
he already had the role in Star Wars. Because you see at the casting, you see now if you look at the Star Wars casting tapes, that's where you really see how good Carrie Fisher and Mark Hamill are because they're nobodies, and they have to say all this ridiculous dialogue, and they say it as if it's important, like it means something to them. And that's what I consider, people consider range. I consider if you take this content that means nothing, all that stuff, Alderaan, all that stuff, you're saying all that stuff as if it means something. I'm like, you can tell this is going to be good, and on the casting select. So, and that's not direction, that's them taking in the words and trying to get a job. It's like, and sometimes the casting select could just be them talking, but this one you have people that look like their job is on the line, but they're also performing not in full thing, but it looks like I'm about to say my lines, but it sounds believable, so it's not like a full performance. And that's why I say it's a strong. So ultimately, I'm glad she doesn't have those struggles. It doesn't seem like they picked out a person from this trilogy to say this is the person. Obviously, the actor who played Finn, he's already made a name for himself, so he just continued that sort of thing since then. So it's not like he was like, cause same with the prequels. Ewan McGregor was already pulled out from Train. He was the guy that got pulled out from Train Spotting. All the other guys worked, but Ewan McGregor was the one that became the big guy. But at the same time, the fact that those guys, I don't know how they feel about it, but they continue to work afterwards is important. But Hollywood is going to pick one of the people in there and say, we don't like, not that we don't like it, we're not interested in you, and you figure it out. And you can, but you have to. The hard part is that the roles you get could be, wait, why is that guy in this movie? That type of deal.
But Carrie Fisher was Hollywood royalty. Debbie Reynolds is her mother. Eddie Fisher is her father. I mean, why couldn't she get more roles?
Well, that's the thing. When I look at one of my favorite movies the Blues Brothers. I saw it as a kid, and even as a kid, seeing her in the movie, it's like she just shows up as the angry girlfriend, and she finally catches up to him, and she can't win over his powers over John Belushi's powers over her. Now it's like as a kid, I think there was nothing to the part, even though I wasn't thinking story wise. And as I keep thinking in my head, it's like it feels like they weren't writing to her character saying, "Hey," and I understand that. I've helped the actor friend when he gave me his script and I said, "Hey, let's we can show that we can make this better." Most of the time, people don't want that. Most of the time, they want you to say what it is. So I think the hard part is that she was royalty. She was a talent. She had like the thing of it is when I heard her sing on what's her name? What's that show? Vernon Shirley. Like that's not the voice that she sung when she's with her mother. When she mother saying doing bridge over what's her name? That song that Aretha Franklin sung over troubled waters. Like the voice that she has from this little tiny white girl is so big. It was just like, where did this come from? So she's definitely a talent, and she was a talent. And when she did talk about her her family life and the struggles she had. She did it as a stand-up comedian, and I was like, wow, she could do stand-up. But then when she did her own one-woman show, she did it as a performance. So she was explaining to you, this is like that, sort of like the way Tyson's thing was, where she was talking to the audience as a thing. And I was just like, I think she could be a stand-up comedian too. But I hear what you're saying, and I just don't feel like the parts were ever written. They didn't have any reason to. The reason would be, hey, we want you as a girlfriend of this person. So it probably was easier to be like, hey, I'll write. You know, she started writing, and same thing happened to who is it? The crazy to say, Charlie Murphy couldn't get anything because he was Eddie Murphy's brother, and then he started writing, and he was selling stuff to Hollywood from time to time, whenever. And he showed stuff that I saw, which was low budget stuff. He was able to do stuff that I found entertaining. So it's just kind of finding your way. But if you want to be a star, that's the hard thing to do. You'll always be able to work, even if it is doing something terrible. Whereas actors are like, hey, I was just in this as black actors, and you come in, oh well, I'm thug number 3, and I was I was like the lead, like in what's the name? Whereas everyone, I don't know, it's finding your way, and you see with this time before when they had the struggles and actors went to the web and they were coming up with sometimes wacky web series, but that's where you can kind of show your talents and stuff like that.
That's true. You're right. All right. Is there anything else you want to say?
Not on this. We can cose it out.
So, spin rack.
Out.